let me ask you something uncomfortable. Why are you alive? Not how, not when, not what you do for work or who you love or where you are going. Why? Most people never answer that question, not because they can't, because they are terrified of what the silence says back. You have been handed a life, the rarest, most extraordinary thing in the known universe. And somewhere along the way, you got very busy and forgot to ask what it was for. So today, we ask. Chapter 1. The lies you were told about purpose. Here is the first thing every great philosopher agreed on. You were lied to about purpose, not maliciously, not deliberately, but completely. You were told purpose was something you find, like a lost key, like a career path, like a passion waiting quietly in a room you just haven't entered yet. Find your purpose. Follow your passion. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. Sounds beautiful, feels hollow. Because here is what Aristotle actually said, over 2,000 years ago. And nobody put it on a motivational poster. He said purpose is not found, it is built. He called it eudaimonia, not happiness, not success. Something closer to flourishing, the full expression of what a human being is capable of becoming. And it doesn't arrive as a revelation. It arrives as a practice. Then came the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote privately in his journal every single night. Not about power, not about legacy, about whether he had lived with intention that day. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear. He should fear never beginning to live." And yet, here we are, scrolling, waiting, postponing. Most people are not afraid of dying without purpose. They are afraid of admitting they have been living without it. But the philosophers didn't just diagnose the problem. They disagreed, violently, about the solution. And that argument, thousands of years old, is more relevant to your life right now than anything you learned in school. Chapter 2. The Great Disagreement. Here is where it gets interesting. The greatest minds in history could not agree on what a meaningful life actually looks like. And their disagreement tells you something important about your own. Aristotle said meaning comes from virtue and contribution, from developing your highest capacities and offering them to the world. Purpose is outward. It is relational. It is built through action. The Stoics said meaning comes from within, from radical acceptance, from focusing only on what you can control and releasing everything else. Purpose is internal. It is independent of outcome. Nietzsche, darker, more provocative, said there is no inherited meaning, no cosmic purpose handed down from above. He said the universe is indifferent, and that the only response to an indifferent universe is to create your own meaning, deliberately, defiantly. He called it becoming who you are. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, said meaning can be found even in suffering, especially in suffering. He watched men die in the camps and men survive. And the difference, he said, was not physical strength. It was whether they had a reason to keep going. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." 4 thinkers. 4 completely different answers. So who was right? Here's the provocative truth. They all were. Because purpose is not one thing. It is not a single destination with a single road. It is the question you have to keep answering for the rest of your life. And the people who stop asking it, that is where the real danger lives. Chapter 3. The Cost of a Life. Without meaning. In 1960, a psychologist named Abraham Maslow described what happens to human beings when they reach the top of everything society told them to want: safety, security, love, status, and still feel empty. He called it the existential vacuum, the hollow space where meaning should be. And he said it was becoming an epidemic. That was 1960. Look around now. We have more comfort, more entertainment, more distraction than any generation in human history. And rates of depression, anxiety, and purposelessness have never been higher. Frankl predicted this. He called it the primary neurosis of the modern age, not trauma, not repression, but meaninglessness. The quiet, persistent feeling that none of this is actually going anywhere. That you are moving, but not toward anything real. This is not a small problem. Research consistently shows that people with a strong sense of purpose live longer, recover faster from illness, make better decisions, and report deeper levels of satisfaction across every area of life. Purpose is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. And the absence of it doesn't just feel bad, it costs you everything. So what do? Chapter 4. The only answer that has ever mattered. Here is what the philosophers, all of them, across all their disagreements, quietly agreed on. Purpose is not a noun. It is a verb. It is not something you have. It is something you do every single day, in the smallest choices and the largest ones. Aristotle said, act with virtue. The Stoics said, act with intention. Nietzsche said, act with defiance. Frankl said, act with love. The method differs. The direction is the same. Forward, awake, on purpose. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Not, what is your purpose? That question is too big and too heavy, and it paralyzes more people than it helps. The question is smaller, more honest. What would you do today if you knew it mattered? Because it does. Every conversation, every choice, every moment you decide to show up fully instead of halfway. The philosophers didn't find meaning handed down from the sky. They built it, in the dark, with their hands. And so can you. The real question was never, what is the meaning of life? It was always, what are you going to do with yours?